Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Catherine Belchik, and here's my dear friend, Cecilia Garrick.
Hello.
Today, I wanted to create a video and talk about how our thoughts can create our reality. There are a lot of realities out there, and it all really depends on which reality you feels right for you and what reality you'd like to take. And the reason why I wanted to have Cecilia on with us today is to tell us a bit more about a very interesting life experience she had when she was younger, where basically she got into an accident and was considered paralyzed and was told that she would never be able to walk again. Yet here I have my friend bouncing and twirling. So what happened? How did she actually um, live through this experience to come and tell us the story of how she made it? So it's an inspiring story that I really wanted other people to hear about. So Cecilia, I will pass uh, the screen on to you so that you can share and tell us what happened. So just to give us sort of the setup, if you can go back to what happened, the accident, and what year it was, and any details that you think might be interesting.
Sure. Well, I was 21 and I was actually on a date just with a nice guy. And he lost control of the car. We were going at a high rate of speed and he lost control of the car. And the last thing I remember was the sensation of rolling on gravel. Um, but but there is something to tell you before that time. Before we were running at a high rate of speed, I forgot. He stopped the car suddenly and he said, "Put on your seatbelt." And this is at a time when seatbelts weren't really put on. So I put mine on and he started going again. And I go, "Oh, no. If I'm going to be uncomfortable with a seatbelt, you too." So I remember helping him put on his seatbelt nice and snug. Okay. We went on and 5, 10 minutes later, he's dead because we had a car accident where the car rolled off. He lost control of the car. It flipped a few times, and we were way out in the country, and the car was going to be on fire. And so, of course, at this time, I'm not conscious. I don't know what's going on, but I only can tell you about this is because of the police reports and because of the hospital reports, because I don't remember any of this, and I didn't remember it at the time either. And so they found me, they extracted me from the car, and they found out that I had a broken neck. And then they airlifted me to the hospital and started the treatment and everything else. And I remember asking about the guy, and they go, "Oh, don't worry about him. He's being taken care of." And it was only till way later that I found that he had actually died in the car wreck. Anyway, I'm in the hospital, and they find out that I've broken uh, my cervical neck, and they are going to fuse it with my hip bone, to make it stable, but they don't know what's going to work. And at the end of that, yes, it was stable. I was in the hospital for about 2 months, but they told me that I was going to be paralyzed, that I had no movement in my legs, and that I had minimal brain dysfunction. And minimal brain dysfunction is a diagnosis they give you when you're not quite thinking properly. It doesn't mean that it's forever. It just means it's very vague. It just means that you're not quite with us all. And so indeed, I wasn't quite in reality at this moment. I had some hallucinations. I didn't quite know where I was. I thought I was in a condominium for the better part of 2 months instead of being in the hospital. Anyway, so once I finally started getting an idea of like what it meant not to be able to move. Once I started to find it dawned upon me, and I had the social worker come in and said, I had a social worker come in and say, "Okay, now you're getting better, and we're going to have to talk about life after the hospital. You won't be able to walk, but we're here to help you learn to navigate a wheelchair with controls and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, what? That's not my reality. No, I don't know what you're talking about. And the more that I resisted that, the more they said, oh, the minimal brain dysfunction. So she really has, she's in denial. She's just not going to deal with it. And I had lots of people come in and psychologists come in and say, do you realize you are paralyzed? Do you realize you cannot move? And I go, oh, but that's just for now. I go, I'm working on it right now. I'm working on it. And you'll see, I'm going to walk out of here. You'll see. So I was extremely defiant and rebellious in the hospital. So that's kind of where things started.
So what did you actually do? So you said that's not my reality. I'm not hearing what you're saying. That's just not an option for me. I have a life to live and I have things to do. No, thank you. What else did you do during, so how long were you in the hospital for? Sorry, did
2 months.
you were in for 2 months. What were your thoughts during this time, not when they were coming in and feeding you this idea that that's it, you're done, you're kaput? Were you envisioning yourself? Were you feeling your future? What were you doing exactly?
Well, first of all, I had a lot of pain. So there was one point, which I don't know if I've told you this before, but there was one point where I had I was in this kind of dream of pain, and I was in and out of consciousness, I guess. And I had one of those kind of moments where I had to make a decision whether I was going to stay or I was going to go. And the vision of leaving was very beautiful. I was like on the top of the tippy top of like some kind of Himalayan peak, and saw all these mountains. It was beautiful. All I needed to do was soar into the beautiful blue sky and the pain would be gone. Or I could take a step back and start going down the mountain into the cold valley, et cetera, et cetera. And I knew that it would be very painful to do that. And it would be very horrible. And I have no idea why I chose that, obviously, because we're here talking. I chose that path, but I don't know why. I didn't have children. I didn't really have anything like that to live for, but I chose that path anyway, not knowing why. So after that, I guess that really rebounded me into thinking, okay, well, so they say I'm paralyzed, and indeed I can't move. Okay, so what am I going to do about it? So as you know, I've always been interested in neuroscience, and neuroscience is rather my passion, and everything to do with brain and behavior. So I already knew a little bit about how nerves regrow and how nerves are situated in the back and in the spine and down our legs and all that kind of stuff. I knew enough. So I just started thinking about the fact that it was whole, that there was not a break, that it was being like knitted together, if you will, okay? And that I was going to do that. And so I had nothing else to do in the hospital. I couldn't really read. I don't like television, even to this day. So there was nothing to do but to think. So I decided that I would think and think and think about rehabilitation.
So your thoughts were focused on your rehabilitation, using the knowledge that you had and the visions you had of repairing yourself.
Right. In fact, it's like we kind of make it up, right? It's like
Yeah.
people who have cancer and they want to destroy the cancer cells, they kind of make kind of visualizations of what the cells look like and things. Well, I did the same thing. I started just thinking about strings and having them whole and taut and tight and all intact and everything, and electrical signals going up and down them unimpeded and things like that. And so I was very busy, and so I remember concentrating so much that I would be sweating, and that I couldn't actually get the sweat off my forehead, so that it would just drip. And they were always wondering why I was so hot. the nurse would come in and say, why are you so hot? What are you doing? And then I would just say, thinking, because I thought that, okay, if I'm going to really make this happen, I've got to use all my thinking effort. Every spare moment I have to do, I have to think the same thoughts over and over and over again. Aside from the pain and aside from sleeping and kind of going in and out of consciousness at times, I was just thinking. And I started really saying, okay, I'm going to be able to move my toes. I'm going to be able to do that. And then then I started doing that. All right. And I remember that I thought I felt movement. What? Was so excited. I felt movement. So I called in the nurse. It was 3 a.m, something like that. And so she's like, yes, what is it? Because I was pretty much to myself. I didn't actually bother people. And so she's like, yes, what is it? And I said, I can move my toe. And she's like, what? What? It's 3 a.m. Go to sleep. And I go, no, I can move my toe. So she pulls off the covers and she's like, go ahead, move them. That would be amazing. Go ahead. And I couldn't do it in front of her. Okay. Nothing was happening. Oh, how many times did I cry wolf? I don't even know.
Hmm.
So that happened for a while.
Hmm. When did you start seeing movement in your toes or any parts of your body?
Well, it was like I had to have the idea first, and then I had to remember the sensation of movement, because remember, I hadn't moved in 2 months, right? So I had to, but I didn't know anything about learning to rewalk or any of that kind of stuff, which eventually I did have to learn to do that because the signals, it's like I'd forgotten or something. But anyway, so after constantly doing this over and over and over again, I finally got to the point where there was actual movement. It was a tiny smidgen of a movement, and I had to insist that they keep looking. And I go, look, and then finally it was there. Finally, there was enough movement to convince the others that actually there was something. And then it was almost like all hell broke loose, because this was the ward where you never walk again. Okay, no, everybody who's on that particular ward will never ever walk. They will either be a vegetable for their life, or if they're lucky, they'll be in a wheelchair, right? So that started the whole thing, but it wasn't finished yet, you know. That was just the first beginning.
So that was the beginning, and then what? What I mean, they were.
Well, then after that, I had to then it's kind of like a self-perpetuating belief. Okay, so there were doubts, but then it was like they go, oh no, that's just transient movement. That's just that's movement that sometimes happens out of reflex. That's not really guided by your head. And I was just like, what? Nobody really wanted to believe that. Okay, they were just like, oh, how interesting your reflexes. And I'm like, no, it's not. And at this moment, then I became extremely exigent and kind of a bad patient, because now that I knew, now I wanted the attention. I wanted the time to think. Don't bother me. I wanted different foods at this point to regenerate my system. Though I didn't know, because there's still, my head wasn't quite clear. So the demands I'm making really do sound like they're from somebody who has minimal brain dysfunction, somebody who's unclear. Okay. And then when it became, I kept practicing and practicing and practicing until I could really move my foot. And I go, okay. So they took away the covers and I go, do you want to see some movement today? And they're like, oh, we talked about that being reflexive movement, in that kind of tonality, like I'm not clear enough. I'm not smart enough to understand what they have to say. And then I was able to sit there and go, right now, I'm going to move my toes up. Right now, I'm going to move my toes down. Well, look what happened. So that happened. And then, of course, I'm just like, I was still, not able to move my arms and all sorts of stuff. So I guess but I was able to smirk with my mouth. So I was able to go, yeah, there you go. So that really started it all, and they didn't understand, and they tried to do all sorts of, they tried to understand how could I have gotten rid of my paralysis. And then it was very quick after that. Then they said, okay, we have to sit up. And I was completely dizzy from doing that. And then I had to go into, they allowed me to take therapy for learning how to walk again and all that kind of stuff. But my medical records say something like recovery from paralysis, etiology unknown. They don't understand it. Yeah,
Wow.
they don't. They have tried to explain it, but they couldn't explain it. And then
Wow.
so that was really amazing. But now, I mean, getting rid of the minimal brain dysfunction, that took 2 years.
Hmm.
Okay, so it wasn't over till it was over. Okay, and so, but getting out of that, walking out of that, well, they don't actually let you walk out of the hospital, but I walked around that whole floor where, and that was amazing to the nurses to see that, because patients on that floor never walk. So to see me walking at 3, 4, 5 in the morning, because I was going to train, I was going to walk, I was going to do whatever it took so that I could just walk out of that hospital like I said I'd do. And so, of course, very grateful. And, we can't just say that it's me, but yeah, I think that it was my ability to uh, want something so badly that I'd be willing to do whatever it took. And that in that moment meant that I had to spend all my thinking just thinking about that one central thought, nothing else, not what other people said, not other doubts, not my pain, nothing. And not even reality. Because reality was, if you look at reality, I'm in bed, um, connected to a device that was pulling my neck, and that had pincers screwed into my head. And this was pulling my head so that I could keep my neck straight. Okay, so the reality wasn't too pretty. Okay, however, in my head, the reality was something completely different. So yeah, I'm very grateful for that happening.
Amazing. What a powerful story. And this is exactly why I wanted people to hear it. That, I mean, it is an extreme case, as we were discussing earlier. Um, Maybe not everybody is supposed to come out of an accident in the way that Cecilia came out of. However, it is a beautiful example of how, when you focus on something with your mind, you can achieve it. No matter what situation you're in, no matter what people tell you, it really is up to you to create your own reality. And Cecilia is extremely healthy, radiant human being. Um, so I really just wanted to have her come on and tell her your story. If any of you want to get in touch with her, I'm sure she'd be free to and happy to discuss even further, and perhaps
Oh,
assist someone, any of you that needs some assistance in focusing your mind on a certain objective. If that's helpful. I mean, we're at this period of time where all of us are sort of sharing what we have to offer in order to enlighten others, and in order to help them evolve in physically, mentally, spiritually, all of that.
yeah,
So thank you so
thank
much.
you, Catherine. It's
Yeah,
really nice, really
if
great.
you have any extra last messages to deliver following the whole story and experience that you lived, please share them now.
Sure. One last thing, and that is that when anybody goes through something major like this, you have a decision, you have a choice to how that will affect you in your life later. And so for me, having gone through all of that, I am so not the same person as I was before. And it really has guided me to what I do in my life today. I'm basically a rebellious, person, and I like to do what I want to do. And I also have that feeling, probably because of this accident, that if I really want something badly enough, I can get it.
Mhm.
So any kind of intense struggle or intense trauma can be actually a positive, have a positive outcome if you want it to be. You know, it depends on how you look at it. So I would encourage anybody who has these horrible traumas to them to try and see how can it actually serve you rather than how can it be a burden.
Well, it also puts you in a position where you have the choice, like you have that choice to soar off the mountain and get rid of that pain, or actually live the life that you're meant to live. And it's through the darkness that you see the light. And so so beautifully you chose life, and you chose to prove to yourself more than anyone, and to the others, sure, why not, but prove to yourself that you can make it. And I as well, I've had a story where I had to go through darkness to find my light, and they're very, very powerful moments. So yeah, we are not just a physical being, we are also our spiritual being, and our thoughts and our emotions and all of that are there to help serve us to make the choices, how we wish to live our lives, if we wish not to, or if we wish to challenge the things that come to us. So thank you so much, Cecilia. I'm so happy you are open to share this story, and it inspires me. I love to say, wow, Cecilia, she was once paralyzed, and see her hopping and skipping now.
That's
it's,
true.
it's a
Yeah.
wonderful story. All right. Well, thank you so much. And if any of you want to be in touch with Cecilia or myself, please comment below, or I'll leave the links and all that in the bottom of this video, and you're welcome to be in touch with us. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.